Today we're going to plant celery in one of our raised bermed beds that I have prepped here. It's about 4 foot wide, 50 inches wide, and 10 foot long. We're going to divide this bed up in two portions here. The first portion is going to be for the celery, and the second portion is going to be for our shallot bulbs. So what we want to do here, what I've done is I've come in with a garden fork, removed all the weeds roots that I can find, and I loosen the soil up. Now, just by doing that right there, that has allowed me to see about 5, 6 different worms. And that's one of the reasons why we do not till here, is because those tines would just chop up all of those worms, and we don't want that. We want to continue to have those worms reproduce and feed off the organic matter that we have put in the soil. So what we'll do is we've got a bag of certified leaf compost, and we're going to dump a half a bag, that's approximately 2 cubic foot, a half bag on each side of the bed here, and we'll just level it off with the rake. Then before that, we're going to add fertilizer, just to try to get everything as full and as proper and as healthy as possible. This is some 464, and I know how much the applicational rate is, and this is derived from pine bark and turkey litter. Now, you would normally, if you're going to apply it like this, you'd work it in the soil, but since we're going to add the compost on top of it, that'll essentially sandwich it in and it'll be fine. So we got that, and then we just got to divvy up the compost here, about half a bag. See that good rich black compost from leaves. Now all we want to do is just add, just basically put a 1/4 inch or so over the area, and what that's going to do is it's going to permeate down into the soil as it rains, and hopefully we don't have to water a whole lot, but with our irrigation system when we hook that up. Okay, it's about what we want. Now I did add, this here is a 1 foot section here that I did add a whole lot of compost to earlier, simply because that needed a lot of help. It was very densely packed. So what we'll do here is, with our celery, you can buy celery starts. You don't want to start celery from seed in the ground. It just is not going to do well. These were started approximately 11, 12 weeks ago inside under the Happy Leaf LED grow lights, and they've been doing very, very well, very healthy. Now you do want to harden these off, bring them outside, acclimate them to the temperatures outdoors for a couple of days prior to planting. And you don't want to plant these when it's too early, because the fluctuation temperatures can cause these to stress and go to seed. But we're okay with the temperature, and it's time to plant. So what we're going to do is, on a healthy celery plant, now these are not like the type you're going to buy at the store. These are not going to be tightly packed. These are more of a loose stalk variety. And we'll just simply take, and what we're going to do here is put about 3, I'm going to try not to walk in the bed here. I'm going to try to space them out first before I plant them, dig the holes. That's about, let's cover that one. See, I'm adjusting as I go here. Oh, right there. Kind of want to go 3 across. I think that's about the most that we're going to get here, because the end result here is not going to be the seed start, you know, the way it looks now. The intention is having it kind of take over this whole bed, but we want enough space for it to grow without any problem. So these were planted in the root maker trays that air prune the roots. I'm just going to untangle this one here, gently extract it. You can see there's no root boundness, just nice long roots, and untangle it. Now when you're growing your own celery, the flavor is much more intense, much more fragrant than the store-bought stuff, because it's not being traveled from who knows where. So you want to keep that in mind. So we've already added the fertilizer, we've already added the compost. Now we're just going to plant it at the same depth that it came out of the container. So you want to keep it right around that area. So we might have to backfill with a little compost. And then we're going to get that tucked in, just like that. And it will take a little time. Well, that one's going to stand up on its own, so we're good. So that's how we're going to plant them. Going to do about 8, 9 inches apart, with the intentions that they're all going to grow very well. Now, you want to put these in a relatively full sun area, full sun if all possible. We have a sun coming up over my back and then goes down in front of me. But during the morning time, even with the tree in full production of leaves, we still got about an 8-hour window on this back bed. So we're perfectly fine with putting them back here. Again, your key is good nutrient-rich soil. We've got leaves right here. Those are going to bring broad over at some point here in the next week or two. I want these plants to get established, and then I'm going to bring that mulch over and mulch around the plants to add that barrier to help hold in the moisture and kind of smother out any weeds that are potentially there. So I'm going to get these planted, and then we'll get going on that. So we've got them planted. I got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 here. And if we need to, I can put more in this bed. But also, we still have enough left over that there is sometimes the chance that one of these don't make it, and then in a week I can just come in and replace it. And again, you want to go, I'm going about 8 inches apart, and that's probably closer than what's recommended. But again, I want to have as much packed in here as possible. So if you've never grown celery, you don't want to start it from seed, or you don't want to plant it from seed in the garden. You want to start it from seed indoors. But also, most of your independent garden centers may also carry a variety that will work well in your particular growing area. We've had a phenomenal crop here of Untitled celery. Now, we do have some going to seed, and that is what this looks like. The plants have gotten stressed. We had some drought conditions for a while. There was no irrigation put on this at all. They just did naturally what they do. And some plants will go to that stress state and immediately put seed on. Now also, if it's when you plant this in the spring, there's techniques in when to plant this. If there's too many cold nights as a seedling, it'll go to a stress mechanism degree and will put seed pods on there as well. Now, seeds are very, very small, and you get a lot of them, and we could save seeds from these, but it's just easier to go to migardener.com and pick from their 450 varieties they have available, and just get the celery seeds that I'm looking for. So you can harvest this. You can let this set for a while. Once it gets to a certain temperature at night, freezing, that type of thing, it's not going to do very well. You can let this go and it will come back next year, and that's when generally the seeds will develop on it. They're biannual. So you can harvest it with a knife, a saw, a scissors, snips. What you want to do here, and I'll get close to this one here, is these are large. I'm going to pull this up just to show you what I'm dealing with here. Oh. That's the root system. Now this seed is essentially the size of a grain of sand is what we're planting. Now what we have here is we have the main trunk, and then what it looks like we have offshoots off of that main root. This is a tremendous celery plant here, 18 inches tall, almost 20 inches. Now what we can do here is I'm going to saw this off at the roots. And there we go. Now these are not the type of celery that you're going to buy at the grocery store. So it's got more of an intense flavor. They do have some deep ribs there. There's some there's one here, leaf that's no good. But this has got some good structure. Again, you want to harvest this right before the weather really turns off nasty. Like if tomorrow's going to be a snowstorm and your temperatures have been mild up to that point, that's when you want to harvest it. You don't want to let it set, my recommendations, past that snowstorm, because you're not going to have much celery. So I'm going to go harvest all of this, and then when we get to the seed pods, we'll take a look at that. But what can you do with this? Well, it does have some shelf life if you put it in the fridge. What we have found is you can chop it up and freeze it. Use it in soups and stews, that type of way. Also, if you don't like celery, you shouldn't plant a whole lot, because there's a lot of celery there, and there's a lot. You can dehydrate it, the leaves as well. There's a lot of things you can do with it. So I'm going to harvest this, and when we get to the seed pods, we'll take a look at that. So I've made the executive decision. Instead of harvesting, I think there's like 25 plants here. We're not expecting any severe, damaging, cold, traumatic weather. So I'm just going to harvest what we're going to use right now. I do want to harvest this one here that's going to seed. I'm going to cut it off at the base here. Now, if you leave, like I'm leaving, that right there in the ground, that is going to re-sprout next spring, so be aware of that. If you don't want that to happen, and that's going to produce seeds, but you can get an early, like a double crop off of it essentially before it goes to seed. Let's talk about the seeds here. I've got some some celery here that's got some bad leaves. What occurred here is the central stalk, I might as well just break this apart because that's what's going to happen here. It got stressed, and then it put this seed pod on. Now, left alone, these will blossom and produce multiple hundreds of thousands of little seeds. This can be put in the compost pile. It probably will still go to a flower seed state, but that's what's occurring on that. And if you leave that alone, that is just going to flourish and you'll have a lot of celery seeds. So if you don't like a lot of celery seeds, you can, when you see this develop, I've seen this develop the last couple of months or last couple of weeks, I could go in there and snip this back. Actually, it was developed a couple months ago because it got to this point the last couple of weeks. You can trim this back and almost try to prevent it from going to seed to put more energy in the plant instead of the seed production. So celery, it's a very easy crop that we have found to grow here in Zone 5A. Might be a challenge for some of you in the warmer climates during the summer months, but it's also something you can experiment with and probably grow very successfully over your cooler portions of the year.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.